My mother-in-law looked at my 2-month-old daughter and said, "This baby can't be our blood." Everyone went quiet. My husband looked confused. I just smiled. Then the doctor walked in holding test results and said, "Actually, there's something you need to know." 2 days after giving birth to my beautiful daughter, Sophia, I was lying in that sterile hospital room, still exhausted but filled with pure joy. The afternoon sun was streaming through the windows, and everything felt perfect. My husband Marcus was adjusting the flowers his family had brought, and his mother Patricia was cooing over the baby in that way grandmothers do. Marcus comes from one of those picture-perfect families you see in magazines. His mom, Patricia, had been nothing but supportive throughout my pregnancy, constantly asking about doctor appointments, buying tiny clothes, and talking about how excited she was to be a grandmother. His dad, Robert, was quieter but equally kind, always making sure I had everything I needed. But then something shifted. Patricia was holding Sophia, rocking her gently when her expression began to change. She started studying my daughter's face more intently, tilting her head this way and that. Her warm grandmother smile slowly faded into something else, something that made my stomach twist. Have you ever felt that moment when you can sense someone judging you, even before they say a word? Patricia gently placed Sophia back in her bassinet and walked over to Marcus. She whispered something in his ear that I couldn't quite hear, but I caught the words, "different" and "notice." Marcus shrugged, clearly not understanding what his mother was getting at. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. For the next hour, Patricia kept making little comments. "She's so unique looking," she'd say, studying Sophia's features. "Her skin tone is interesting. Those eyes are certainly distinctive." Each comment felt like a tiny needle prick, but I tried to stay calm. After all, babies can look different from their parents. Genetics is complicated, right? I know how painful it feels to be doubted, especially when you've just brought life into the world. But then Patricia crossed a line I never expected. She turned to me with this forced smile and said, "Elena, honey, you are absolutely certain about, well, the timing of everything?" My heart stopped. If you were in my position, how would you react to that kind of accusation? The room went dead silent. Marcus's face went white. "Mom, what are you trying to say?" His voice was strained, like he was afraid to hear the answer. Patricia took a deep breath, and then she said the words that would change everything. "This baby can't be our blood. Just look at her. She doesn't look like any of us. She doesn't look like Marcus at all." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Marcus stared at his mother in shock, then at me, then at our sleeping daughter. I felt my face burn with humiliation and anger, but something inside me stayed strangely calm. Maybe it was mother's instinct, or maybe I knew something they didn't. I looked Patricia straight in the eye and smiled. "We'll know the truth soon enough." That's when Dr. Sarah Chen walked in, carrying a thick folder of papers. Dr. Chen wasn't making her usual cheerful rounds. Her expression was serious, professional. She glanced around the room, taking in the obvious tension, the red faces, the way Marcus was standing frozen between his mother and his wife. "I need to speak with the family," she said quietly. "All of you." "You want to guess what those test results were going to reveal?" Patricia straightened up, probably thinking this would vindicate her suspicions. Marcus looked like he might be sick. But I just kept smiling because I had a feeling this conversation was about to take a very different turn than anyone expected. Dr. Chen opened the folder and said, "I have some unusual results here. Mrs. Thompson," she looked directly at Patricia, "perhaps you'd like to sit down before I continue." Now everyone in that room was holding their breath. What could be so shocking that a doctor would warn someone to sit down? Patricia remained standing, crossing her arms defensively. "I can handle whatever it is, doctor." Dr. Chen nodded slowly. 3 days ago, someone requested a DNA test using a hair sample from baby Sophia. The request came through our lab with your insurance information, Mrs. Thompson." The room went completely silent. Marcus turned to stare at his mother. "Mom, you did what?" Patricia's face flushed red, but she lifted her chin defiantly. "I had to know. Something just didn't feel right. A mother knows these things. Have you ever had someone violate your trust so completely that it takes your breath away?" Dr. Chen continued, her voice steady and professional. "The test results came back, and they were unexpected." She paused, looking around the room. "Mrs. Thompson, the DNA analysis shows that baby Sophia is indeed related to your son Marcus." Patricia's shoulders relaxed slightly, a look of confused relief crossing her face. "Well, of course she is. I never doubted." "However," Dr. Chen interrupted, "the test also revealed something else. Something that I think explains your concerns about family resemblance." Marcus stepped closer to the bed. "What do you mean?" Dr. Chen took a deep breath. "Mr. Thompson, according to our genetic analysis, you are not biologically related to Patricia Thompson." The words hit the room like a bomb. Patricia staggered backward as if she'd been slapped. "That's impossible. That's absolutely impossible." Marcus's face went completely white. He looked like he might collapse. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that based on the DNA comparison, you were not born to Mrs. Thompson. The genetic markers show no familial connection between you and her." Do you understand the pain Marcus must have felt in that moment? Patricia was shaking her head frantically. No, this is wrong. Marcus is my son. I raised him. I gave birth to him. This test is wrong." But Dr. Chen's expression was gentle but firm. "Mrs. Thompson, I ran the test twice to be sure. The results are conclusive." Marcus sank into the chair beside my bed. "Mom?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Is there something you haven't told me?" Patricia's face crumbled. The strong, confident woman who had walked into this room an hour ago was falling apart before our eyes. She couldn't form the words. The reflection in the hospital room mirror showed a family in complete upheaval. But somehow I wasn't surprised. "Patricia," I said softly, "it's time for the truth." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "You don't understand. I was protecting him. I've always been protecting him." Marcus stood up abruptly. "Protecting me from what? From the truth? You've lied to me for 31 years? That's when Patricia broke down completely. She sat heavily in the visitor's chair, her hands covering her face. "Your mother, your biological mother, was my sister Catherine. She died when you were 6 months old. Car accident. She wasn't married, and she'd asked me to take care of you if anything ever happened to her." The room was so quiet you could hear the beeping of the machines in the hallway. "I adopted you legally, but I never told you because I was terrified you'd want to find your birth father, or that you'd love Catherine's memory more than me. I know it was selfish, but I couldn't bear the thought of losing you. If you could feel the weight of 31 years of deception lifting off someone's shoulders, that's what we witnessed." Marcus was staring at Patricia like he was seeing a stranger. My whole life, everything I thought I knew about myself. I reached for his hand. "You're still the same person. You're still my husband, Sophia's father." But Marcus was processing something bigger. All those times I felt different, like I didn't quite fit in the family photos, like I was missing some piece of myself. It all makes sense now. Patricia was crying openly. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought if you never knew, it wouldn't matter." "Do you think Marcus could forgive a betrayal this deep?" Dr. Chen cleared her throat gently. "There's more information if you want it. We have records about your biological mother's family." I saw Marcus's eyes light up with something between hope and fear. He'd just learned his entire identity was different than he'd believed. The question was, Did he want to know more? But before anyone could answer, I decided it was time to share something I'd been keeping to myself. Actually, I said quietly, I already know about Catherine. Everyone turned to stare at me. Marcus's mouth fell open. You knew? I nodded. When I was doing research for our wedding, I looked into both our family histories. I found Catherine's name on some medical records that came up when I was dealing with insurance. I've known for 2 years. Patricia looked stricken. You knew Marcus was adopted and you never said anything? It wasn't my truth to tell, I said simply. But I also wasn't surprised when you questioned Sophia's parentage. You see, Catherine's family, Marcus's biological family, they were Mexican-American. That's where Sophia gets her beautiful olive skin and dark eyes. The pieces were finally falling into place. Marcus was staring at me with a mixture of love and amazement. You knew all this time and you protected both of us? I squeezed his hand. Family isn't about DNA, Marcus. It's about love. Patricia raised you, loved you, made you the man I fell in love with. That makes her your real mother. And Sophia, she's got the blood of all of us, your adoptive family who raised you with love, and your biological heritage that makes her unique. Can you imagine how it felt to watch a family put itself back together? Patricia was looking at baby Sophia with new eyes. She really is our family, all of our family. She wiped her tears. I'm so sorry, Elena. I accused you of something terrible when you were the one who understood the truth all along. Dr. Chen was smiling now. This is actually quite beautiful. Medical records show that Catherine's family had a long history in this area. If you're interested, there might be relatives who would love to know about Marcus and Sophia. Marcus looked overwhelmed but hopeful. Maybe someday. Right now, I need to process the fact that my mom kept this secret my whole life, and my wife has known for years and never said a word. Patricia reached for his hand tentatively. Can you forgive me? I know I handled this all wrong, but you have to believe I did it out of love. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. The whole room held its breath. Finally, he looked up at Patricia. You're still my mom. You changed my diapers, taught me to ride a bike, sat through terrible school plays, and worried about me every day for 31 years. DNA doesn't change any of that. The relief on Patricia's face was overwhelming. But then Marcus continued, however, we're going to have to rebuild trust. No more secrets, no more lies to protect people. If we're going to be a family, all of us, including Sophia, then we need complete honesty. Patricia nodded eagerly. Anything. Whatever you need. Huh. I looked around the room at this complicated, messy, beautiful family. You know what I think? I think Sophia is incredibly lucky. She's got a grandmother who loves her so much she was willing to fight for her. A father who just discovered his heritage but hasn't lost his heart. And a great-grandmother's legacy she'll grow up knowing about. Dr. Chen gathered her papers. I'll leave you all to talk. But for what it's worth, this is one of the most loving families I've seen handle this kind of revelation. Most people don't come through this stronger, but I think you will. As she left, Patricia picked up Sophia again. This time, instead of studying her features with suspicion, she was marveling at them with wonder. She has Catherine's eyes, she whispered. I should have seen it immediately, not as a threat, but as a gift. Marcus put his arm around his mother. Tell me about her, about Catherine. I want to know about my biological mother, but I also want you to know that you'll always be mom to me. And that's when I knew this family was going to be okay, maybe even stronger than before, because the truth, the real truth, wasn't about whose blood ran in whose veins. It was about who showed up, who loved unconditionally, and who chose to build a family together every single day. Patricia looked down at Sophia and said softly, Welcome to our family, sweetheart. All of our family. Do you believe that crisis can make a family closer than they've ever been? Because looking at us in that hospital room, Marcus discovering his heritage, Patricia learning to love more openly, and me holding our daughter who represented the beautiful complexity of love itself. I knew that sometimes the most painful truths are the ones that set you free. The baby, who was questioned for not looking like family, had actually brought the deepest truths to light. And in the end, she looked exactly like who she was meant to be. A bridge between past and present, a symbol of love that transcends genetics, and proof that family is made not by blood, but by the choice to love each other through everything. Even when that everything includes DNA tests, long-buried secrets, and the courage to rebuild trust from the ground up. 3 weeks had passed since that life-changing day in the hospital room. We were back home, and on the surface, everything looked normal. Patricia visited daily, bringing meals and helping with Sophia. Marcus had thrown himself into work, processing his new reality. But underneath it all, there was something unfinished, a deeper story waiting to be told. I was feeding Sophia one evening when Patricia knocked on our door, holding an old wooden box I'd never seen before. Her hands were shaking slightly, and there was something in her eyes that looked like anticipation mixed with fear. "I've been going through Catherine's things," she said quietly, "things I packed away 31 years ago and never looked at again." She set the box on our kitchen table like it contained something precious and dangerous at the same time. Marcus looked up from his laptop. "What kind of things?" Patricia opened the box slowly, revealing old photographs, letters, and what looked like official documents. "Your birth mother. She left more than just you, Marcus. She left a whole story." Can you imagine discovering that your entire family history was about to expand in ways you never expected? The first photograph Patricia pulled out took my breath away. It showed a young woman who looked remarkably like Marcus. The same kind eyes, the same smile, holding a baby. But what struck me most was the man standing beside her. He was tall, with olive skin and dark hair, and he was looking at Catherine and baby Marcus like they were his whole world. "That's your father," Patricia whispered. "His name was Diego Rodriguez. He and Catherine weren't married, but they were very much in love." Marcus stared at the photo like he was seeing himself for the first time. "He looks like Sophia," I finished softly. "Marcus, you need to see this." I went to get our daughter from her crib and brought her back to the kitchen. When I held her next to the photograph, the resemblance was unmistakable. The same dark hair, the same delicate features, the same warm brown eyes. "She's not just your daughter," Patricia said, her voice filled with wonder. "She's carrying on a love story that began before you were even born." But there was more. Patricia pulled out a stack of letters tied with a faded ribbon. "Diego wrote to Catherine every week during her pregnancy. Even after she died, he kept writing letters to you, Marcus. Letters he gave to me, hoping I'd share them with you someday. Do you think some secrets are worth keeping, even when they cause pain?" Marcus's hands were trembling as he untied the ribbon. The first letter was dated just a few months after Catherine's death, written in careful handwriting on yellowed paper. "My precious son," Marcus read aloud, his voice catching. "I know you will never know me, but I want you to know that every day I think about you. Your mother was the most beautiful person I ever met, not just on the outside, but in her heart. She loved you more than anything in this world, and so do I." Tears were streaming down Marcus's face. "Patricia, why didn't you ever show me these?" Patricia's own tears were falling freely now. "Because I was selfish. Because I was afraid that if you knew how much Diego loved you, how much he wanted to be part of your life, you might choose him over me." The truth was, finally, completely out in the open. Marcus set down the letter and looked at Patricia with new understanding. "Where is he now? Is Diego still alive?" Patricia nodded slowly. "He lives about 2 hours from here. He never married, never had other children. He's been waiting 31 years to meet you, but he respected my wishes to leave you alone. She paused, taking a shaky breath. Elena, he doesn't know about you or Sophia yet. My heart started racing. You want us to contact him? I think it's time, Patricia said simply. I think it's time to stop being afraid of love. There's room in this family for everyone who belongs here. Can you feel how scary and exciting it would be to suddenly have a grandfather appear in your life? That weekend, we drove 2 hours to a small town I'd never heard of. Diego Rodriguez lived in a modest house with a garden full of the most beautiful roses I'd ever seen. When he opened the door, Marcus and I both gasped. It was like looking at Marcus in 30 years. The same build, the same gentle expression, the same way of tilting his head when he was thinking. Marcus? Diego's voice was barely a whisper. Patricia called me, but I didn't dare believe, "Hi, Dad." The word came out of Marcus's mouth so naturally, like he'd been saving it his whole life. Diego broke down completely. This strong, weathered man fell apart at the sight of his son, and Marcus caught him in an embrace that was 31 years in the making. I stood there holding Sophia, watching a family heal itself in real time. And this must be Elena, Diego said when he finally composed himself. His English was accented, but perfect. Patricia told me about you, about how you protected my son even when his own family was doubting. And this, I said, stepping forward with Sophia, is your granddaughter. Diego's face lit up like Christmas morning. She has Catherine's eyes and my grandmother's nose, he whispered, reaching out to touch Sophia's tiny hand. She's perfect. But then Diego said something that surprised all of us. There's something else you should know. You have family here. Aunts, uncles, cousins who have been wondering about you your whole life. My heart nearly stopped. More family? Diego nodded, smiling through his tears. The Rodriguez family is big and loud and very, very loving. They're going to be so excited to meet you all. Have you ever imagined what it would feel like to suddenly belong to a huge extended family you never knew existed? What happened next was like something out of a movie. Diego made some phone calls, and within an hour, cars started pulling up to his house. People poured out carrying food, flowers, and children of all ages. Marcus looked overwhelmed, but in the best possible way. His Aunt Rosa hugged him so tight I thought she might break him. "Mio, we have been praying for this day since you were born," she said in heavily accented English. "Your papa, he showed us pictures, told us stories. We've been waiting to love you." Cousins introduced themselves. Maria, who was a nurse like I planned to be. Carlos, who had Marcus's same laugh. Little Anna, who immediately wanted to hold baby Sophia. It was chaos, but the most beautiful chaos I'd ever experienced. But the most amazing moment came when Diego's elderly mother, Marcus's grandmother, arrived. She was tiny but fierce, with silver hair and eyes that sparkled with intelligence and love. "Abuela Carmen," Diego said softly, "this is Marcus, Catherine's son." She looked at Marcus for a long moment, then reached up and touched his face with weathered hands. "You have your mother's kindness and your father's strength," she said in English that was careful but clear. "You are exactly who you were meant to be." Then she turned to me. "And you are the woman who loves him." "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Love is what makes family, not blood. Though you have both now. Do you believe that some meetings are meant to happen, no matter how long they take?" As the evening went on, Marcus relaxed into this new reality. I watched him discover that he had Diego's talent for gardening, Rosa's way of making people feel welcome, and Carmen's quiet wisdom. He wasn't losing his identity. He was expanding it. But the most beautiful moment came when all the women in the family gathered around Sophia. 3 generations of Rodriguez women cooing over the newest member of their family, sharing stories about babies and traditions and the special way Hispanic families celebrate new life. "She will know where she comes from," Carmen said, holding Sophia with practiced ease. "She will know both sides of her story." Patricia, who had been quiet most of the evening, finally spoke up. I owe all of you an apology. I kept Marcus from you because I was scared, and that was wrong. Diego put his hand on Patricia's shoulder. You raised him well. Look at the man he became, the woman he chose, the child they created. You did what you thought was right with the love you had. But now we do what's right with all the love we have, Rosa added, and suddenly Patricia wasn't an outsider anymore. She was part of this expanded family, too. Can you imagine how it feels when forgiveness flows like water, washing away decades of pain? As we drove home that night, Marcus was quiet but peaceful. Sophia was sleeping in her car seat, and Patricia was looking out the window with a small smile. How do you feel? I asked Marcus softly. Complete, he said simply. For the first time in my life, I feel complete. I understand now why I always felt like something was missing. I wasn't missing something. I was missing someone, a whole family of someones. Patricia turned around from the front seat. I'm sorry it took so long. Mom, Marcus said, and I noticed he still called her Mom. You gave me a foundation of love that was strong enough to build on. Without that, I wouldn't have been ready for all this new family. Everything happened exactly when it was supposed to. But our story wasn't quite finished yet. The next morning, I woke up to find Marcus already dressed and holding Sophia by the window. The morning light was streaming in, and they looked like a painting, father and daughter, connected not just by genetics, but by the story that brought them together. What are you thinking about? I asked, wrapping my arms around them both. I'm thinking about names, he said softly. Sophia Rodriguez Thompson. She gets both sides of her heritage. And what about us? Marcus turned to look at me with eyes full of love and certainty. I want to do something. I want to have a ceremony. Not a legal thing, but a family thing. I want Patricia and Diego and Abuela Carmen and everyone to officially welcome Sophia into both families. I want her to know from the beginning that she belongs everywhere. My heart melted. A blessing ceremony. Exactly. Mexican families do it, right? And Patricia's family can participate too. We blend all the traditions together, just like we're blending all the love together. Have you ever seen love multiply instead of divide? 2 months later, we held the most beautiful ceremony in Diego's rose garden. Patricia and Diego worked together to plan it, with input from Abuela Carmen and Rosa. It wasn't about any one tradition. It was about creating something new that honored everyone. Marcus wore a traditional guayabera that had belonged to his great-grandfather, while I wore a dress that Patricia had made by hand, incorporating lace from her own wedding dress and embroidery that Rosa had taught her. Patricia stood with Diego as they both blessed Sophia, speaking words of love and protection in both English and Spanish. Abuela Carmen tied a red ribbon around Sophia's tiny wrist, a protection charm that had been passed down through generations of Rodriguez women. She will grow up knowing she is loved by many families, Carmen said, holding Sophia up to the sky. She will be strong like her bisabuela Catherine, wise like her abuela Patricia, brave like her papa Marcus, and loving like her mama Elena. But the most powerful moment came when Marcus stood up to speak. 6 months ago, I thought I knew who I was and where I came from. Today, I know that identity isn't about where you start. It's about who you become and who you choose to love along the way. He looked at Patricia. Thank you for raising me with enough love to handle all this new love. He looked at Diego. Thank you for waiting 31 years to welcome me home. He looked at me. Thank you for seeing the truth and protecting it until we were all ready to handle it. And finally, he looked down at Sophia in my arms. And thank you, little one, for being the reason we all found each other. Do you believe that sometimes the people we're meant to love find us, no matter how long it takes? As the sun set over that garden full of roses and family and laughter, I realized something beautiful. The question Patricia had asked in that hospital room, "This baby can't be our blood," had been answered in the most unexpected way possible. Sophia was absolutely our blood. She was Patricia's blood through love and choice and 31 years of devotion to Marcus. She was Diego's blood through genetics and history and a love story that began before any of us were born. She was the Rodriguez family's blood through tradition and culture and the joy of welcoming someone home. But most of all, she was our blood because blood isn't just about DNA. Blood is about showing up. Blood is about choosing each other every day. Blood is about building something beautiful together, even when, especially when, the path isn't straight or simple or easy. Patricia was holding Sophia as the ceremony ended, and she whispered something that made my heart sing. "Welcome to all of our families, mi nieta. You are exactly who you were meant to be." And looking around at this beautiful, complicated, perfect family we'd built together, with love and truth and the courage to let our hearts expand instead of contract, I knew she was absolutely right. Sometimes the most painful questions lead to the most beautiful answers. Sometimes the biggest secrets, when finally shared, become the strongest foundations. And sometimes when someone asks if a baby can really be their blood, the answer is bigger and more beautiful than anyone ever imagined. Yes, she's our blood, all of our blood, and that's what makes her perfect.